Good afternoon, Santa Clarita, and everyone else streaming around the world. We're listening to a special broadcast. Today we're talking about grieving and how to move through your grief in a powerful way. My name's Alex Urbina. I'm a transformational life coach, and joining me in studio, we have Sharon Brubaker, a certified grief recovery specialist. Thanks for hanging out with me today on the radio.
This is so cool, and of course we're discussing my favorite subject, grief and mending hearts. Yeah,
that's right. You are an expert in grief. You know, I went to lunch today with a good friend of mine, and he was sharing with me a very challenging process that he's going through in his life, and that is the idea of possibly losing his hearing. He got some bad news that it might not be temporary loss that he's receiving in this journey, but that he's going to have to start learning how to cope with it. And after working with you for the last couple months, I'm learning a lot more about grieving, and it just dawned on me that hearing loss is a loss.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Could he not be going through a grieving process?
Absolutely, he's grieving. So we know for a fact that there are 43 known losses that a person can experience over a lifetime. But what happens is people think death and divorce are the most common, right? Or a breakup of a romantic relationship. And I think they will even throw pet loss up there in the top list, right? But what about change in health? What about things that absolutely change? What about not only hearing loss, my heart really breaks for him, but Alzheimer's when it affects your family, right? Each time a parent drops to a new low, you lose parts of that. I can't even imagine what your friend must be going through, but knowing that everything in his life will have to be changed and adjusted, even his work experience, his home life, everything's going to have to be adjusted to the hearing loss, and figuring out ways to cope with that and the stuff that he will be leaving behind, that's an area in his life that really will need to be completed.
Yeah. It's amazing because right now I'm actually in the process of writing my second book. And one of the chapters that I'm writing on is commit to change.
Yeah.
And teaching people how to just start learning how to commit to constantly changing, because the world is always changing. It's always evolving. Right. But our schools don't teach us how to learn, how to change, how to adapt, how to overcome, how to always be reinventing yourself. One good thing about my friend is he is on this journey of consciousness, and he is been training and learning and discovering and growing and really kind of walking down that path of learning how to accept things and learning how to adapt and overcome. And so it's just another part of his journey. But I'm so glad to see that the human being that he is now, learning how to take this on courageously, is obviously, a step above some of the other versions of him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the guy who he is now today isn't the same guy he was a year ago. And to see him courageously take it on is very inspiring.
Sometimes what happens is that we end up having to do an inventory of our life and see what other areas in our life that this particular loss could be attached to that we're still holding on to. It doesn't seem like it makes sense, but sometimes there could be a loss from his past or his childhood that he's connecting to this particular loss that he could still be holding on to.
So it could trigger something that
Absolutely.
He might not want to have dealt with in the past. That's so amazing to me to realize that when we were younger, if we had one or multiple losses, we could have just stuffed them or put them on pause or tucked them away and not really dealt with them. And then to find out 20 years later, we can go through a tragedy or go through a bigger loss that triggers all of them. And then they all can kind of piggyback on each other.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. And I imagine that in your transformational work, you find this too. So Dad left when I was 7 years old. It was just Mom and I. I learned how to get along. I had a boyfriend, a senior in high school, and he was my first love. I just knew that I was going to marry him, and first year in college, he and I broke up. So now that's the second man that's left me. I graduate college, I get married. We're having this great, blissful life, and then one day he leaves. And now I decide that men are just not for me. I'm going to go on this path without them. We're going along, and something very small can trigger that. And all of those losses from time of Dad's men in our life, and all those losses come back roaring, full-fledged. And it's something that we should have dealt with way back when, but we never did.
Absolutely. What you just described is the limiting beliefs that we create about ourselves that aren't necessarily true.
Right.
And in the description that you just painted for us, it's very easy for that young lady to have created a belief called love equals loss.
Right.
Anytime I give my heart so deeply and fall in love with somebody and give them my heart, they at some point figure out how to leave me, whether they die or they just choose to not be a part of the relationship anymore. And so they've created that limiting belief. And they can also create a belief that I'm not worthy of love.
Absolutely.
Because every time I love somebody, I end up either pushing them away, and we start to justify all these things about what happened, and we don't learn how to psychologically create these empowering beliefs that empower us to keep choosing to find new loves and learn how to change and adapt and deal with loss in a powerful way.
Absolutely. And I love the way our programs really kind of mirror each other, right? So for me, it is definitely a belief system that they put into their head, that they believe that love and loss equal each other, and we're not going to go through that. And then what I do is I basically walk them through that experience. So we lay that out in a timeline that's actually a handwritten, I kind of call it your heart work, sort of like your homework. We're actually writing it out. Every loss they've experienced with that very first loss. So when Dad left, what it felt like for you, even at 7-year-old you. And then I complete that relationship with Dad and all the things that he did. The loss of the hopes, dreams, and expectations and everything that he should have brought to me. I just knew my dad was going to be perfect. I knew he was always going to be there for me. And now he's gone. And he's not here, and he's never been here for me. And I complete that one relationship. Then we go on to the next relationship and the next relationship. And little by little, we just change that belief system that love and loss are equal to each other.
One of the great gifts that I found is this distinction called gratitude.
Yeah.
And if you have ever had a loss but don't have a complete loss, you can be grateful for the amount of whatever it was that you had at that level. So here's an example. So my friend says to me, if I was operating at 100% and I lost 20% or 40% of my hearing, well, guess what? I still have 60% of it. So it wasn't a complete loss. And so I can be grateful that right now I still have 60%.
Right.
And be grateful that I lived the whole life up until now experiencing the joy of having 100% hearing. So again, this all goes back to how healthy your mind is,
of course,
and the power of perspective, that you can shift it in a way that actually empowers you rather than disempowering you to where you get stuck in that grieving process and it becomes icky and just overbearing and just heavy and daunting.
And that's exactly what happens. What happens with a person that is not healthy in their mind and they can't go to that list of gratitude, or they just refuse to? Those are the people that come.
Or can't see it, or
they
can't find
see
it.
They're so hurt. My heart is so broken from time and time again, from all the losses I've experienced. And it may not be the hearing loss. I'm absolutely clear that it could be something else. But they refuse to even look for 1% of something that can help them to change.
And that could be just something that they're going through in the present moment right now. It doesn't mean that tomorrow they're not going to wake up and have a new moment of clarity.
Absolutely.
Which now brings to light the process of, or the possibility that they could be experiencing certain distinctive things in the grieving process. I know that you don't like to call them stages, but it seems to be, maybe we'll call them a common themes that some people experience. And maybe some don't, but I like to go over a couple of them because there was an article I read regarding hearing loss, and they just threw them out there. So one of them, it seems to be denial, that people could actually go through the experience of refusing to believe that they're actually having a hearing loss. So they just overcompensate, or they keep putting off going to get it checked. They just kind of just learn to cope with it, but underneath it could be that they're in denial, that they don't want to even believe that could even be possible, that I'm losing my hearing.
Absolutely. Now, remember when Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote The Stages of Grief, she wrote them for somebody who was given a diagnosis, right, of a major change in their life. So absolutely, here's the thing that's so crazy.
Well, I'm off the stages.
Okay, I know you're off the stages, but these will actually work here.
We don't have to call them stages.
But let's say they work here, Alex. So denial is one.
Okay.
Denial is one of her stages. Absolutely. I absolutely believe
I
would go in denial.
Whether they're stages or not, can we agree that some people just go through and having an experience of being in denial of whatever that loss is that they have to confront.
I agree 100%.
Okay, awesome. All right, so there's a possibility that if you're losing some part of your health, it could be your eyesight.
Yes.
I just hit 40 6 years ago, and when I hit 40, all of a sudden things started getting blurrier. And the guy that I used to make fun of, my dad, that used to walk around with 12 pairs of save-on glasses,
right.
Magnifying glasses all over the house. Now I'm becoming that guy, right? And I'm starting to look at
pushing it back further and further.
So there's that part of losing your eyesight, and so there could be that process of denial, and even even as I'm talking about this right now, I guess the process of denial is, when people are going, "Hey, you're squinting," like, put your glasses on. It's like, right. I don't need them.
I don't need them. I can see without it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about the person that is even older than 40 plus 6, and their body just starts to ache a little bit, and they are in a physical job, and they've always been able to carry their weight and carry the load, and they've been able to persevere, and they're like, I need to provide for my family. This is the only job that I've ever known. I have to do this, and they push through, for sure.
So then what do they deal with? They deal with the loss of being healthy enough or strong enough or
I think it's a couple things.
Enough, or what?
I think it's a loss of trust, loss of safety, right? Because I don't know whether I'm going to have this in the future. What about the person that I'm thinking of someone in particular that, they were a bricklayer and couldn't continue on with their job.
Like if they get in a car accident and their back is thrown out.
Right, exactly. But they were so old in age that the thought of going on and learning a new career was just so scary for them and so daunting that they never moved forward in that. And it literally, they crumbled right there.
And here's the amazing thing about this is that as family members, if we're not conscious and aware that this is even possible, that they could be going through this grief or dealing with loss, we're expecting them to bounce back because we're not going through it.
Yes.
And how cold and callous we might appear to them because we're not, feeling what they're feeling.
And the family members could be in denial also. That it's actually absolutely happening.
I agree. So the next experience that seems to be common is anger.
Yes.
Like, I'm just angry. It's like, are you okay? No, I'm just angry.
Right.
Why? I'm just because I can be angry.
Right.
Because I can get mad that, this shouldn't be happening to me, or however you're justifying your anger, but they could be experiencing, some anger and
for
animosity.
Sure. And that anger, when it comes out in all different areas of your life, and even against your loved ones, the ones that are closest to you, right? And you and I have experienced this. What happens when it comes out at the clerk at Starbucks? It wasn't even her fault.
Right.
And that person goes off, and you and I would look at him and be like, dude, what is going on in his life? I really would like to know.
Well, in the article, it talks about the anger, like anger towards anyone related to the loss. And so it's giving an example of like a doctor or an audiologist that's trying to help you, and you're going, what I need is a cure, not hearing aids. So you're now projecting your anger or taking it out on the person who's trying to help you.
Yes.
But nonetheless, it's still coming underneath that emotion is that you've got some anger that's harboring, that you're holding on to, that's now just manifesting itself. The next thing is bargaining. It says, if my hearing comes back, I'll be nicer to people. Is that bargaining with God? Are you?
I feel like it's bargaining with God for sure. Because who else are you going to bargain with?
You're making a plea that if I could just get this back, I promise that I'll make amends. Or
I'll just do. I'll do it different next time. I'll take care of my hearing. I won't listen to loud music. I'll go on that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Now all of a sudden I'll start to pay attention and start taking care of it.
Yes, absolutely.
And really kind of course correct that. The other thing that is common as an experience when it comes to loss is depression.
Yes.
It says, I might as well just give up going out with my friends because no one can hear what I say anyway.
Right.
So you're kind of being cynical, right? And you're just, justifying that why bother now? Exactly. And so then you can easily convince yourself to just go into a funk and just be depressed and sad and maybe feeling sorry for ourselves too, right?
Right. And it gets tough. You're out there in conversations and you really can't hear what people are saying, right? And the women's voices for men are even lower and they're harder to understand. And so you're only catching parts of it, or people are actually laughing at you because you're responding to something that wasn't even what was said. You know what I mean? It is really a traumatic experience to lose your hearing.
So that opens up now the possibility that you're not being present anymore.
Exactly.
Because, and my friend said this, I asked him, I said, I would think that as you start to lose a portion of your hearing, whether it's the left side or the right side, that it would force you to be more present in a conversation because you're now intently trying to hear what the person's saying. I would think that it would bring you into the present moment. And what he said to me was, it actually does both. I can, at times, it'll bring me in the present moment. Other times, if I'm hearing crackling or some kind of a sound, then I'm now in my head trying to figure out why it's doing what it's doing. Mm-hmm. So it's actually taking me out of being in the present moment.
Yeah. So it completely takes you out of being in the present moment. So this is an experience that I personally have endured with my husband. He lost his hearing a few years ago. And what happened was we would be walking around and he would be looking to me to tell him what everyone had said. So someone would say something to him and he would quickly turn his head and look at me. And it dawned on me what he was doing. And I said, listen, I'm not with you all the time. And my heart just broke because I couldn't even imagine what's when I'm not with him, right? And so when they put him in the booth and they looked at his hearing, and he had quite a bit of hearing loss, they let him know that it was the women's voices that were definitely the hardest for him to hear.
My friend said that too.
Yes.
He said something about the syllables, the way women speak with the syllables, it because of the tone or the frequency, it can't vibrate the ear to make sense to them or something. And
now, you're hitting me right in my heart. I'm like thinking about this. I never, even for myself, thought of it as a loss for him. But the first time he had to put those hearing aids on, think about that. I mean, the first time you had to go out in public and say, and admit to yourself, I'm not perfect.
And I think for men, more importantly, and I don't know why, and again, I'm going to get the emails because every time I do this, they're going to go...
Send them the emails.
Yeah, women do it too, right? But for me, and I can only speak because I'm a man,
right.
I know that when I was younger, I hurt my back. I was playing basketball on a certain weekend with some of my friends, and we rolled this old truck back into the driveway, because we moved it to play basketball. And then I went to sleep, and then I woke up stiff that Monday morning to go to work, and so I had to call out of work for a couple of days. That feeling of feeling helpless and having my wife to, put my shoes on for me, it was so humiliating for me. It was like, especially being my personality as a controller.
Yeah.
If you're a controller, you're used to doing everything for yourself.
Right.
So now you have to depend on other people and ask people for help. And so that's a whole process in itself. But the loss of being able to do something for myself, to be independent, was huge. And now in hindsight, looking back, I never realized that I went through that little process, for maybe a whole week or two that just lingered on of getting into that funk and that depression and not knowing how to make sense of that. And so I'm glad we're having this discussion because it opens now this whole possibility to really kind of educate ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
The last one, and this is why I think that they call it stages, because this very last one, and the last one that they have on
the stages
on the list is acceptance. That, apparently, maybe the acceptance is the part that helps kind of set you free from being in the psychological resistance of what's actually happening. It's almost like once I accept it, I'm like, I can breathe now. Now I own it. Now I've made it true. I've come to realization that this is just the way it is.
Right.
When you go to that, it is what it is. I finally got to the it is what it is process of this. And now from here, I can figure out how to continue to move on in my life moving forward.
You and I talk about this a lot, Alex, and it is absolutely until the acceptance happens, especially in a situation like this, which doesn't happen with a death. That's not going to happen with a death, but until they accept it, they're not going to lean into it. And until they lean into it, they're not going to do the changes that they need to do to complete it and work with it and allow it and feel it and grow with it. The whole time we're pushing back against it, it's tough. We're not accepting it. We're pushing back. It is going to be so painful. Every step of the way is going to be painful. But the minute we accept it and say, okay, it is what it is. This is me. How can I make this the best me that I can make myself?
Yeah, this is me now.
This is me now. And it's also a completing process. I absolutely could see walking through the grieving process with someone who's losing their hearing. Absolutely, 100%.
I love that you say lean into it.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, it paints this beautiful picture of somebody who finally chooses to just like dive in.
Yeah.
You know, and I always use this in my coaching practice at certain times with certain people that just understand the words that I use. I'll tell them, just dive in. When you finally surrender and just dive in is the moment that you embrace whatever it is fully. And that's when you free yourself up. And it seems to be that because we're struggling with fears, the fear is so powerful that it doesn't allow us to lean in. Yeah. It keeps us, you know, tilted back and leaning back and turning our head and avoiding and not wanting to just go, you know what? I'm just going to flip that switch and just dive in. It reminds me of the one kid, and I think we talked about this last time, the kid in the pool that just dives in. Yeah. And he goes to a little bit of suffering for a couple minutes of being cold, but then his body shifts and adjusts, and he's in there swimming while the other guy's sitting there going toe and ankle and knees, and his teeth is chattering, and he's making the whole process more miserable than it has to be because he's not willing to just dive in and embrace, whatever is standing in front of you. And it takes a lot of courage to be willing to just surrender the resistance and just dive in and learn how to embrace it and or accept whatever it is.
Look at anger. What is anger? Anger is a resistance. Anger's pushing back.
Well, I see the whole process as resistance. Denial, you're resisting. Yeah. Anger, resistance. Right. Bargaining is resistance. And then the depression, you're resisting all of it until finally you come to a state of, we'll call it a state of grace. Right. You just kind of come to this like, all right, like enough is enough. I can resist this till the cows come home. Right. But in my resistance, I'm still struggling and I'm still suffering. Why don't I get to a place where I deserve to finally surrender the struggle and choose to accept what it is so that now from here, I can start figuring out how to navigate my life with whatever it is that I'm carrying with me, whether it's cancer or whether it's, no leg or whatever my ailments are. I'm going to choose to live my life with or without whatever it is that I've gotten used to for so long.
My heart breaks thinking of a story of someone who it was too late when they came to acceptance, and the whole process could have been different. What
do you mean by too late?
Cancer, like getting a cancer diagnosis and given just a couple months to live, and the acceptance came so late that even just those 2 months of just being with the family and spending time could have been so different had we not pushed against it.
And what if that person who was in resistance for it so long that maybe they taught their family what it's like to suffer and be in resistance, that 10, 20, 30 years from now, one of those family members gets that fateful news that they have cancer, and they remember that loved one who wasted that time. Yeah, wasted that time. Maybe they taught to a few people because of that agonizing resistance that they went through.
Because we go a different path because of that.
Absolutely. All right, stay tuned for more of this special broadcast called Grieving here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Aloha, friends! We invite you to come by Honu Coffee, home of the best cold brewed coffee. What makes our coffee special is how our organic coffee beans are infused with nitrogen to create a smooth and delicious cup of coffee. You'll also find traditional bold coffees and island-inspired signature drinks. We're the perfect place to catch up with friends or just relax with your favorite cup of joe. Honu Coffee on Lyons Avenue and Walnut in Newhall. Stop by and say aloha!
With Facey Medical Group, good health is within your reach. Our doctors provide Santa Clarita's finest primary and specialist care at 4 convenient Santa Clarita locations. If you're looking for connected, convenient, personal care, there's no better place. We accept most health insurance, including plans offered through Covered California. Call 1-844-MY-FACEY for more information or to schedule an appointment.
There's a very good reason Gilbertson and LeCornu have been voted Santa Clarita's #1 orthodontist for 8 years in a row.
There's a lot of orthodontists in our community and a lot of really great doctors.
Dr. Megan LeCornu,
Artistically, I like nice big smiles. Those are the smiles that wow people. So in all my treatment planning, I don't do a one-size-fits-all. I look at the patient's facial structure and I match their smile to their facial structure.
Dr. Megan LaCornu of Gilbertson and LaCornu.
Embrace your smile.
EmbraceYourSmile.com.
Mission Valley Bank puts the community in community banking. They strive to be your most trusted bank. Mission Valley Bank is happy to sponsor KHTS Holiday Music. Happy holidays!
KHTS Holiday Music also brought to you by Chiquita Canyon.
From all of us at Chiquita Canyon, we'd like to wish you and your family a happy, prosperous holiday season. This year, Chiquita Canyon is proud to sponsor holiday music on your local hometown station, KHTS. Happy holidays.
Little Eye Leaders is the newest preschool in the Santa Clarita Valley. At Little Eye Leaders, our outstanding teachers lead with intellect, perspective, and heart. That means our programs provide a warm, nurturing atmosphere to meet the unique needs of each child. We believe that play is a powerful form of learning for young children. That's why our kids have every opportunity to learn through the magic and excitement of play. Parents, schedule a tour today by calling 303-0400 or online at littleeyeleaders.org.
Welcome back to this special broadcast on grieving, how to move through your grief in a powerful way. I'm Alex Urbina, hanging out with Sharon Brubaker. We've been talking the last half hour about grief, but more specifically when people are going through the loss of hearing,
Right.
maybe for the very first time, or I guess it's always the first time, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you just lose something that
Yeah.
you've been dependent on, and we get used to our eyesight and our hearing, and all the essential elements of the part of us that helps us experience the world. When one of those starts to fade away or we lose it in increments, it could be devastating. And as we were sharing, we were talking a little bit about my friend who was going through this process, and then you started to share a little bit about your husband in that process, and you were having some aha moments.
I was having some major aha moments. So in the Grief Recovery Institute, we grief recovery specialists refer to this as a change in health. So this would fall under the category of a change in health. So anything that has to do with your health, your well-being, your body, anything that changes there can absolutely be a grieving experience.
But up till now, we've been talking about it, and it just becomes a title. But until you actually have someone in your life that's experiencing it, you start to go, all these light bulbs start going off, and you realize how we bring it real in our life.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm having all these aha moments, because I didn't realize, even for myself, look at here with my husband, what things he may have gone through with absolutely losing his hearing, having it checked, getting the hearing aids, and the whole process of what it was like. And I can even remember moments of being in a conversation, sitting around a table where everyone is laughing or a joke was told, and you talk about being in the present moment or having the person be more present and really trying to hear, but they just didn't hear either the punchline or the joke. And so they're almost like they're sitting outside of the group, because they don't hear it.
So you can actually feel isolated.
Of course, completely isolated.
Like you're not part of the group anymore.
You're not part of the group. One of the experiences also I remember him sharing is that if we get into a situation like a restaurant or a party where there's a lot of background noise, he's definitely not going to hear the person in front of him. So that's a difficult part in your life. And it happens at little increments. It starts to happen. Do you know what I mean? And so we talked about denial. So little increments, he just started complaining a little bit. And then took him a minute, but then he finally went in and got his hearing checked. It's
funny, as we talk about this, I think about another friend of mine that she has a loss of hearing in one ear. And I've never really noticed it. And she never really told me flat out. But through multiple times of her going, I'm sorry, what? And then she'll turn her head with the same ear that that's consistently she's giving to me to have me repeat it. And I think after maybe the fifth or sixth time, I guess she can look on my face and maybe see a puzzled look, and then she finally told me.
Right.
But prior to that, she didn't go around, meeting you for the first time and telling you, oh, by the way, I'm hard of hearing in this one ear. She just dealt with it.
Right.
And then until it became now obvious that we were in a relationship and we're going to keep having conversations,
right?
Especially deep, meaningful conversations. She wants to hear what we're talking about.
What we're talking about.
But yeah, it's amazing how I think from the outside of you not experiencing it, just like when my dad got cancer for the very first time, it seemed like it was always a friend's, uncle's, cousin's brother that got cancer. It never really hit us, so profoundly the way it did when the night we got a call that it was my dad, and that he got diagnosed with it at the highest stage, and we found out that he was not going to be around very long, and so it just made us realize that we get to figure out how to support him through that process. And so now talking about having being that support role for somebody, how do we go through being a support through somebody that's going through a loss?
The first thing I think also for the support team is they have to accept it as well. They can't be in denial. They have got to accept it. They have to accept that this is absolutely happening in their immediate family or in their workplace or with their friends.
That's a great point. But you know what? It also brings up now, as you said that, what part do you accept? Because now when you said that, I think about when my dad got cancer and the doctor said, your dad has, about 8 or 9 months to live.
Right.
What do you accept? Do you accept that they're dying? Or do you accept that they're going through a process that's going to be challenging? Because I remember my mom saying, I refuse to believe that you're dying. And I thought to myself, I kind of it's got something that's inspiring me, but it could also be a part where you're in resistance to being realistic as well. So you have to literally decide, am I, because I don't want to, it's like you want to still be that face for them.
You have to have that hope.
Yeah, and not only that, but if my dad is faced with, the doctor telling him that he's not going to live, past a year, you don't want to look around at your family members and they got the same look on their face.
Yeah. So
there was a part of me that when I was in front of him, the words I was using was I was still talking as though 10 years from now we're going to do this.
Right.
And, so I felt like I needed to be the one that didn't buy into that.
Yeah.
And needed to kind of purposefully be in denial.
Right.
But at night when me and my wife were laying in bed, obviously I was having those discussions with her about, okay, we're going to have to start to really accept this.
And I did both. So that's my
you had the same experience.
Yeah. So in June, my very best girlfriend of 15 years was diagnosed with glioblastoma, and she was given a couple months to live. And I was actually in the room when she was given the diagnosis. So, and she's like, I'm going to fight. That's what she said. So in the room and with her beautiful children, okay, we're fighting. But behind the scenes, I was doing everything that needed to be done for someone who was given a 2-month diagnosis. Getting the will together, getting the house together, bringing the hospital bed in, doing everything that I needed to do. And I'd walk in that room and I'd be like, yeah, we're fighting. So for me, I did both. I think sometimes what happens with the family members is they freeze. They don't become that support system. They fall apart, or they choose to buy into the this is not true, you're wrong. Let's get a second opinion, let's get a third opinion, let's get other people in there. And so I think it's an individual decision.
Well, we did that too. I mean, we weren't coming from you're wrong. We were coming from a place of I'm not going to just take one.
Yeah.
We want to hold on to the last string of hope.
Right.
That maybe you are wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to call you wrong right now.
Yeah.
Let's just, maybe you made a mistake.
Maybe you made a mistake.
How about that, right?
I've heard of misdiagnosing all the time.
Yeah. And there's this part of you that, for me, it was definitely a dance. I had to dance on both sides. Because I'm also spiritual, so I believe in miracles.
Yes.
And I think people, when they get to that moment, they're like, all right, I believe in miracles, and miracles can happen anytime and they happen all the time, maybe we get to be the receiving end of one of those blessings. And so you want to stay on dancing on that side,
of course,
especially in front of them.
Of course.
However, I'm also realistic as well, and so I had to dance on both sides of that.
Alex, let me ask you a question. Who do you want showing up for you when it's your turn, right? I want the person that's going to fight for me and be like, no, the doctor's wrong. Right? Let's get a second opinion. I want that person.
I would love to have a whole group of people like that going, you're not dying on my watch.
I want the people that's going to fight. That's for sure. Yeah. Think about it that way.
Even my doctors.
Yeah.
Even if he's telling me, look, by the books, you only got 9 months, but you know what?
Yes.
we're gonna do everything we can.
Everything we can.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, I think that just came to me, but it's like, okay, who do I want showing up for me on that day? For her, I did everything that I could, and I supported 100%, and I supported the children 100%. But behind the scenes, I knew there were things that in my mind that needed to be ready. God forbid that they were right, and they were.
Well, good for her that she had you to be that one that was willing to, when she went to sleep, for you to, be that worker, be at nighttime or 3 a.m. to go, all right, let's do the research and let's prep ourselves if and when that happens. So when I was talking to my friend, I asked him, give me a couple questions to kind of throw at you.
Sure.
So one of those questions was, are we going through the same grieving process or the same grieving cycle as everyone else? I guess he wasn't clear that it is part of a grieving process.
Yes.
And is it just more of a subtle version, or is it just because I guess when he was asking the question, he was thinking that, okay, I'm open to the possibility that it is part of the grieving process, but is it more subtle?
No. It's individual to him. So it's individual to him. So
he could have been downplaying it a little bit.
He could have been downplaying it, and it's whatever accumulations of other losses he may have in his life. But he's grieving the loss of hopes, dreams, and expectations of what he could have been, what could have been if my hearing had stayed longer. Not that it's going to be bad, but we need to say goodbye to that pain of the loss for the loss of hearing and say hello to the future.
Is it saying goodbye to the loss as for himself? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Kind of like that, like you're saying goodbye from the little boy that enjoyed it for his mother, or the version of us that enjoyed it up until this point.
Absolutely.
Almost like splitting your personality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there was a version of me from the day I was born until, 42 or whatever age I'm at, and then I have to decide now. The 42-year-old gets to now make amends with it.
Exactly.
And be grateful for it. And
it's the amends, the forgives, and the significant emotional statements. So
and then now let's figure out how to transition into this new beginning with this 60% hearing, and let's figure out now how to get proactive and figure out how to set myself up with tools to navigate so that I can continue to have, what is it with the doctors? They say something about having a life like how to continue to have a life where you're thriving
and living to the fullest.
Living to the fullest with what you have.
With what you have.
Whether they're limitations or shortcomings or handicaps, I'm going to live to the best of my ability with what I have. I'm going to figure out how to thrive with whatever limitations I'm
in this
carrying
current
with myself
situation.
From this point moving forward.
For sure.
The next thing he was asking was more about how to ask people for support in letting him figure out how to make sense of what's going on. And it was more specifically like, all right, let's say his sister or his friend or his loved one said, okay, let's notify the family. Let's let the family know. He goes, wait. Don't jump ahead of me. Give me my space. I haven't even figured out how to accept it myself before you want to go now and go tell everyone else. Is that fair? That's a fair thing for him, right?
Completely fair, because he's driving the boat. He's leading the train. He's leading this whole process. Number one, he needs to tell everyone what he wants. He needs to be clear on what he wants.
In his inner circle first.
In his inner circle first.
So if he needs time to if he needs 24 hours or 48 hours or however long he needs to wrap his mind around
once he's accepted it,
get to the acceptance stage, then it's okay to say, all right, then once I'm accepted, then I don't care who knows about it. But
because once he accepts it, he is going to start telling it on his own. But he needs to be clear with his family and let them know exactly what he wants. Equally as important, he needs to let them know what he doesn't want. Sister, I don't want you at this time calling everybody. Please give me a minute. That's not the way I want to handle this. Sister, I'm going to call each and every one individually. I'm going to send out an email. I'm going to get the diagnosis completely from the doctor, and I'm going to share that with everyone when I'm ready. So it's important to let everyone know what you do want, how you want them to treat you, how you want them to help you, but it's equally as important to let them know what you don't want.
It's also, I think, important for us even now, and I'll give myself permission to tell those family members that aren't compassionate enough or forward-thinking enough to be able to put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
To be sensitive to what they're going through.
Yes.
And just stop for a moment and ask yourself, if I was going through this, what would I want?
Right.
What kind of support would I need? But more importantly, not just what I would need, but what would they need?
Yes.
Because I might be a person that goes, I don't care who you tell, I'm over it already, or I've accepted it already. But you got to be sensitive to the fact that other people deal with it in different ways.
They deal with it in different ways. And the other thing is, we as support need to realize we can't fix this for him. We can't give him his hearing back. We can't make this better, and we can't make it go away. And sometimes what happens in that process is because we want to make them feel better, or we want them not to pay attention to it, we start doing other things that we normally wouldn't have done to baby them, coddle them, go the extra mile for them.
Right.
Because I feel bad. I feel really bad for him. Let's do something to make him feel better. Let's find these things that'll make him feel better. Let's watch his favorite show 24 hours straight. And let's cook his favorite meal. Bottom line is, cooking his favorite meal is not going to bring his hearing back, right? So we have to be honest with ourselves as well. And we have to have those honest conversations.
It also opens up the possibility that you're cooking his favorite meal because it makes you feel better.
Yes, exactly.
Because what you just said is,
yes.
I feel bad for him.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. Let me cook his favorite meal, and at least he won't be thinking about his hearing loss for a second, right? And then
like he's gonna forget.
We can have our tamales. And
okay, 3 seconds I forgot while I was eating this delicious tamale.
But it's the same thing happens when someone dies. We go to their house and we start doing stuff for them. We want to make the person feel better, when in actuality we can't fix it for them.
Right.
So in any type of loss, we have to understand the biggest thing we can do is show up, be present. And we don't have to say anything. Just be present and be there and hold their space.
I love that. And if you feel like you need to cook and pick up the house, that wouldn't help either.
Yeah.
Because that actually helped me when my dad passed. I had cousins that came out of the woodworks because I was in that initial shock that they showed up, and it was, they were picking up the house, and they were bringing in, I had cousins bringing in, waters
and drinks
and the Mexican bread and all that kind of stuff. And I had my aunts were in there making meals, and that, what an amazing support. So
that is so important, and you have to have that for sure.
But what you're saying is, have that come from a place of wanting to contribute.
Yes.
To support the family rallying around the person who might be suffering the loss.
Yes.
Rather than, I'm going to do it because I'm trying to do it to take your pain away.
Right, to take your pain away. Look at one example. Do we still have time?
Yeah.
One example is, Erica, my sister, after the loss of her boys, and people saying, you need to eat. And so many people would go and make her a plate. And she kept saying, I can't even get the food to go down. It's not uncommon for a griever to not want to eat at all, right? Your urge to eat will come back. And constantly people were making these plates and setting them in front of her that were piled miles high because it made the support team feel better.
That's right.
It wasn't what she wanted. People were not listening. She would say, I'm not hungry, I don't want to eat. But they were constantly bringing these plates of food.
Got it. Stay tuned for more on your hometown station, KHTS.
All-Star Sports Grills is the best place in town to catch a Dodger game on one of their 17 screens and choose a cold one from 23 different tap beers. All-Star Sports Grills prides itself on their fresh, made-to-order menu, including half-pound Angus burgers. Enjoy an All-Star comedy show the fourth Wednesday of the month. All-Star Sports has a pets-friendly and smoking patio. All-Star Sports Grills on Bouquet Canyon, north of Plum Canyon.
KHTS is searching for veterans who are looking to start a new career. We've teamed with the Lifton Institute right here in Santa Clarita. If you're a vet, they've designed a program just for you. In 10 short weeks, you'll develop the skills to land a job in the film and TV industry. Lifton grads are placed in industry jobs. Free, unique career training right here in Santa Clarita. For more information, visit jobsforscvvets.com. There's no catch. It's free, but it's up to you. jobsforscvvets.com.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top-quality musicals and plays. Located in Old Town Newhall, the CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go to canyontheater.org.
It's allergy season again. You've tried it all, yet your sinuses continue to be a problem. Try something different, something holistic, something that will really work. Acupuncture. Kathleen Keneally is Santa Clarita's acupuncture innate specialist. She's been treating many of your neighbors and their children for allergies, sinuses, headaches, and pain. Find out how acupuncture can improve the quality of your life. Call Kathleen Keneally for a free phone consultation. 252-4100. 252-4100. Acupuncture. It really works.
Hey there, I'm Tori with your hometown station weather. A mix of sun and clouds today with a high of 60 degrees. Clear overnight with lows in the low 40s. Very windy and cold tomorrow with a high of only 59 degrees. The KHTS family wishes you and your family a very happy and healthy holiday and a beautiful 2018. For local holiday events, go to hometownstation.com.
Welcome back to this special broadcast on Grieving. I'm Alex Urbina, hanging out with Sharon Brubaker in studio, the KHTS on Main Street, Newhall. You know, with this music, I feel fired up, like I can support anybody going through anything.
Isn't it awesome? It really energizes you, doesn't it?
Gets you all fired up. So listen, what I'd love to talk about, since we're always talking about how to support people in grief, what I would like to talk about is what not to say or what not to do when people are struggling with a loss or in grief. So can I throw a few things at you?
Sure.
All right. So how about what not to say? How are you doing? Why do we not say, how are you doing?
Because they're going to give you the biggest lie out there.
Which is, I'm fine.
I'm fine. I feel like that was a test question.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot with children. So that's what our children will tell us, because they really aren't tapped into their emotions and they don't know how to share those emotions. So instead of asking your children, how was today? How are you doing? Share a little bit about how your day was, and then just be quiet and let them respond to that.
Got it.
Today I really missed Austin. I was thinking about him a lot.
So be honest.
Be honest.
Emotionally honest.
I cried today. I was crying today. I was thinking about him a lot.
Yeah. What not to say? They're in a better place.
They're in a better place. I know people have said, how do we know? What if the person is not religious?
So the griever will take offense to that.
They could take offense to it. Or how about if they say, I don't want them to be in that place. I want them here now. That's not helpful. It's not a helpful comment. And what we're doing is, Alex, when we give them that comment, we're going to our head. We're trying to take the person from their heart, which is, I'm so sorry that Austin is no longer here. Well, you know he's in a better place. That's an intellectual comment.
What's funny is that, in this article that I'm reading where they say not to say that, it says what to say instead. And as I'm reading, I'm going, I don't know about that one, but I'll throw it at you. It says what to say instead is, I'm sorry you're suffering. But aren't you assuming that they're suffering?
Yes. But we're talking about a death, correct?
Well, obviously, yeah, if they're saying that they're in a better place. So instead of saying they're in a better place, they're saying what you should say instead is, I'm sorry you're suffering.
I'm sorry your heart's broken. I'm sorry you're
For your loss, for your pain.
People don't like that. This is what I'm finding out. People don't want to hear that because they feel like it's the standard answer. I'm so sorry for your loss. Like everybody's using it. They use it all the time, so they don't care for it.
It's not authentic.
We want to tell the truth, right? I can't imagine what this must be like for you. My heart is breaking.
You know what I say when people are suffering or they're dealing with a loss is, I love you.
I love you. My heart is breaking with yours.
I just give them a hug and say, I love you.
Yeah.
And it just seems
if I'm on the phone or on social media, I'll say, if I was near you, I'd give you a hug right now. Just letting them know. You just need to let them know that you're near them. You want to be with them. And if you're not with them, or you could just give a hug. Or here's something, Alex, that someone could say. Nothing.
I love that one.
What if we didn't say anything? Partly why we want to say something is because another need to feel we need to fix it.
That's right. Another one, not to say, please let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
Yeah, because there's a list of things that can be done, right? There's a whole list of things. There's always stuff that can be done.
Why says, not? Instead, say, I'll come over and do a load of laundry, or I'll drive the carpool for the next couple months, or have something like an alternative that you're offering them.
When I find out that someone has suffered a loss, I quite often show up at their house unannounced, and I have two things with me. I have a case of bottled water, because people are going to start coming, and they probably were not prepared and maybe didn't have extra waters, and at least the guests now have something to drink. And I bring a notepad, a brand new clean notepad, because the phone is going to start ringing. Whatever is happening, cousins are calling, deliveries are coming to the house. And here's this notepad that can be in the kitchen, and who is ever there can take a note. That way, if the family members are gone, Bob came by, he brought a ham. And they know who brought the ham. They don't just walk in and go, who brought the ham? And this is where it can become a command center almost. So I always bring that. I show up, I give them the hug, and then I'm out of there. And whatever else I feel needs to be done, I look for it and I try and take care of it without asking them.
That's beautiful. I like that. One, not to say, I know how you feel.
I don't know how you feel. I absolutely, Alex, do not know how you felt when your dad died. I don't. My father passed away 4 years ago, and you don't know how I felt when my dad died.
So don't make an assumption that what you felt when you were going through something that was similar
is exactly the same.
That's
what
right.
if your relationship with your dad was less than happy? And so if I tell you, I know how you feel, that's not telling the truth, right? But I can say, I know what it feels like to have a broken heart. I know when my dad died, these were one of the things that I thought often. And you can share your own personal story, which allows the griever to then start sharing their story.
Yeah, you open the space for that.
Yes.
Now. What not to say, this all happens eventually.
Yes. Just don't even say that.
We're not going to even tell you why.
You're not going to tell you why. Just don't even say that. That's one to avoid altogether.
What not to say, she would have wanted it this way.
She feels better. At least she's not sick anymore. You know, she's in a better place. Those all go together. That's not making the griever feel better. Those are all intellectual
What not to
thoughts.
say, you're handling this better than I expected. So sometimes we could basically be putting our foot in our mouth because we're not thinking from our heart.
Absolutely.
We're thinking from our head. And what people need is for you to be loving, compassionate, vulnerable.
Be present.
And being love.
And
rather
be
than
love.
opening your mouth and saying something that just doesn't even
Because
land.
most times we're trying to fix it and we don't want them to suffer, so we're going to their head.
I love it. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
This was fun.
Yeah, it always is. You're listening to a special broadcast on Grieving right here in your hometown station, KHTS.